Hello everyone, welcome to our channel of TJ Comments and Answers. I hope you are all doing well. In this new video, we are going to prepare for the section, Apply Yourself to the Field Ministry, for the week of August 25th to 31st. I hope this will be of great help to many of you. Let's begin. Well, let's start with Start conversations. From house to house. Talk about the end of war and violence. Good morning. It's a pleasure to greet you. Today we're asking people their opinion about a topic we all long for. Do you think the day will come when war and violence in the world will finally end? Honestly, I don't think that will ever happen. There's more and more violence and conflict all the time. I completely understand you, and you're absolutely right. In fact, I find it admirable that you see reality as it is, because many prefer to ignore what's happening. Yes, but I think as long as there are interests of power and ambition, there will always be wars. I totally agree. It's true that human ambition has been the root of many conflicts. In fact, if we look at history, no human government has ever been able to bring a permanent end to war. That's why it's understandable that many people feel discouraged. Exactly, that's how I see it too. And you know, what you're feeling is shared by many people around the world. And it's good to acknowledge it, because that's the first step in looking for real solutions. We also long for peace, and the Bible gives a very different hope from what we usually hear. It doesn't speak of temporary agreements, but of a permanent end to all war and violence. Really? And where does it say that? Look, here in Psalm 46. 9 it says, He makes wars cease to the ends of the earth. This is God's promise, not a human illusion. What's interesting is that this same book explains that God will establish a worldwide government, His kingdom, that will put an end to violence at its root. Well, that would be wonderful if it really happened. Yes, exactly. And it's good that you think that way, because that desire shows you have a sensitive heart. If you'd like, next time I come by we could look at how God's kingdom will act to accomplish this. I can show you another passage where a world without weapons or wars is described. That sounds good. Excellent. Thank you very much for your time and for sharing your point of view. Now let's move on to Start conversations. From house to house. Talk about the end of war and violence. Good morning. It's a pleasure to greet you. Today we're talking with our neighbors about something everyone desires, the end of war and violence. Do you think humanity will ever be able to live without these problems? Well, I think so, but I believe it depends on us. If all countries collaborated and respected each other, we could live in peace. That's a very interesting point of view. And I think it's very valuable that you believe in cooperation and respect. It's true that if there were more unity among nations, many wars could be avoided. Of course, the problem is that there are always some countries that want more power than others, and that's why conflicts arise. Yes, you're right. Ambition and the desire for power have caused much suffering. What you're saying really stands out to me, because many people think the solution should start with leaders and governments. Do you think that will happen soon? Honestly, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like it's impossible, but I want to think that someday people will change. I understand you completely. It's natural to want things to improve. And you know, I really like how you expressed it, because it shows hope, and that's something we all need. Of course, if there's no hope, what's left? Exactly. Notice that the Bible also talks about that hope, but from a different perspective. There's a verse that gives me a lot of confidence, Psalm 46:9, where it says that God makes wars cease to the ends of the earth. The Bible doesn't say it will be thanks to human agreements, but that God Himself will act to make it happen. I hadn't heard that before. It's very encouraging, isn't it? If you'd like, next time I come by, I can show you how the Bible explains that this global change will happen. Yes, sure. Excellent. Thank you for sharing your opinion, it was truly very interesting to hear it. Now let's move on to start conversations. Public preaching. Talk about the end of war and violence. Hello. I see you stopped to look at this display. It talks about a subject that worries many, the war and violence we see everywhere. Yes, lately it seems like everything is worse, there isn't a day without bad news. You're absolutely right, and it's normal that this makes us think. Let me ask you, when you hear so many news reports about conflicts, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Well, that the world won't change. I think this will never stop. I understand how you feel. Many people who pass by here tell me the same thing, and honestly, it's easy to understand when we see how things are. You know, the Bible actually acknowledges that human efforts have limits, but it also promises something very different. Oh really? Yes. Here in Psalm 46:9 it says that God makes wars cease to the ends of the earth. It's a direct promise, and what's interesting is that it explains how He will accomplish it. If you'd like, I can show you that part. Yes, I'd like that. Of course. And if later on you'd like to go a bit deeper, we also have here a free publication that talks about how the Bible assures us this is possible. Now let's move on to start conversations. Informal preaching. Talk about the end of war and violence. Hi. What a coincidence meeting you here waiting for the bus. Yes, it seems like today it's taking longer than usual. That's true. Sometimes people use this time to check the news on their phone, although lately, maybe it's better not to, right? That's so true. Every day there are worse things, wars on one side, violence on the other, you just don't know what to think anymore. You're absolutely right. One would like to see some progress, but it seems like there's always a new conflict. And in the end, the ones who suffer the most are ordinary people, families. Exactly. And the worst part is that they always say they're working for peace, but nothing ever happens. That's true. Many times they talk about agreements and treaties, but they seem to be temporary solutions. And that discourages people. Of course, you lose hope. Yes, and I think many people feel the same way. Sometimes I wonder if we'll ever see a world without all this. I don't know if you've ever thought about that. Yes, it would be nice, but I don't think I'll see it. I'm already used to there always being some conflict. I understand. That's a very realistic way of looking at it. And I also think it's difficult for humans to achieve it on their own. But recently I was reading something that gave me a bit of hope about that. Maybe one day, when we have a little more time, I can share it with you. It's interesting because it's not the kind of thing you usually hear in the news. Oh, well, sure, when we meet again you can tell me about it. Sounds good. It's always nice to share these conversations, especially about things we all want to see improve. Well, those were the sample presentations for the Apply Yourself to the Field Ministry section for this week. I hope they are very useful to you, my dear brothers and sisters. I send you a big hug, and may Jehovah always bless and protect you.